morning, good afternoon. I've been here since 11, so good morning and good afternoon. How's everyone doing? Come on, guys, this is a dialogue. How is everyone doing? Fresh. I love your hair, young lady. What are you hoping to get out of today?
I'm charging the creative spirit.
The creative spirit, recharge. So some of us are here for a recharge of the creative spirit. I'm looking forward to also talking to a lot of you afterwards at the networking. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, filmmakers, dreamers are here, rechargers creatively, and of course, avid storytellers alike. It gives me the greatest pleasure and honor to welcome you to the official, first of its kind, by the way, Sowetan IDC Youth Film Offering. Come on. All right, my name is Nambita Ben Mazwi, affectionately known as Lady Nam. I'm a multi-award-winning actress, an award-winning entrepreneur, a business scientist by qualification and some corporate experience back in the day. And of course, I'm an advocate of African excellence on the global stage. Now, for today, thank you, girl. For today, for many of you, will be the start of exactly that. The start of your story unfolding that will empower every young storyteller with all the information we're going to get here for your dreams of your work reaching the global stage. Now, isn't that exciting? Yes? Yes? I mean, to know that we have potential groundbreaking legacy makers here, and to also look back and say, you know what, it started today at the Sowetan IDC Youth Offering is going to be a testimony I'm looking forward to hearing. I'm honored and excited, of course, to be your official host today and MC as I take your hand and those who are online streaming to equip you with all the knowledge from our industry experts, our IDC, yes, we see Helen Kun from, of course, the film industry, but we're going to go back into that a little later on. But they're going to give us all the critical parts of how to really get your story from inception to getting yourself pitch ready, and of course, what we all need to know, effectively get ourselves equipped for funding. Now, for those of you who don't know, the IDC has played a huge behind-the-scenes role in many groundbreaking productions, some of which I've had the opportunity to be afforded to make history with, like the Netflix movie Happiness Ever After. And while many of you might know me from in front of camera, they've also seen my story from behind the scenes, my background in corporate, and to where I am as a storyteller today. And just to share where my actual involvement with the IDC started, although it's officially starting today as the speaker, of course, and MC. But as I mentioned before, I studied business science at UCT. I have my honors in finance and marketing. And while, yes, I might have started as a storyteller in theater and television shows and campaigns, I thought to myself, nah, this is just a hobby. But of course, as creatives, we know sometimes there's a yearning in here that sits, right? And as this young lady said, she's here to get that creative side recharged. Of course, for me, it was really reflecting while I was in corporate, and I realized something's missing. I'm not fulfilled. That thing that was missing was my love for the arts, my love for being a storyteller. And while I was working at a global software company, might I add, as a strategist, I realized that I no longer had time to do what I loved. There was no longer that time to go to castings and auditions and be on stages. And I took a 2-week trip to New York City. No plan, but I didn't return back. I stayed for 6 months, and that was almost like my eat, pray, love. That's when I realized my love for storytelling. That's where I got the opportunity to be on global stages in New York City as a broadcaster as well. And when I came back to South Africa is when I knew exactly what I wanted to do, to be a storyteller, to be entrenched in media. I've obviously, fast forward 10 years later, to where I am now, being able to build a media company that's become award-winning. I have also known that for me, the long-term plan has always been to create and tell my own stories. And of course, I've been on the job learning, to be honest with you. No one taught me this that I'm doing today. Yes, I have my business science, but I've learned on the job. The power in networking I've truly, truly gotten to appreciate. The power of collaboration. The power of being in the right rooms at the right time like you all are today. The power of knowing what resources to look out for. The power of sitting behind the IDC website and registering yourself and saying, I gotta have a seat to that room. I learned that way. And today, I also am here to learn and hear from the industry leaders and experts because I'm now wanting to produce, and I've started to. So this is going to be that leverage off. And I want to encourage every young person here who is a creative, who is a content creator, who wants to get into media. I see one of my writers here. Hey, girl, from Mbini, the head writer of Showmax Mbini. She's made me an action hero. I'm going to call you out, so thank you for that. But for you all who want to get in and leverage off, I always say don't be one role. There are writers here, as I said. Make sure you touch on every part of the industry. Be multifaceted because we have so many gifts, right? And then obviously tap into that business side, and that is going to be what we're going to be equipped with today. Understanding really the process of getting yourself pitch ready to implementation, distribution channels, and really understanding how to talk to the IDC and meet their return on investment and bottom line. So I know this young lady, Tebatso. That is my introduction. And that was actually through the power of networking. A very good industry friend, Ayanda Sitebe, who owns and is a co-founder of Active Spaces, linked me up with her. And this was when I was on my way to New Orleans to host and represent the country at Essence Film Festival. And I was looking for support. I was looking for funding. I didn't know where to look, So through this, collaboration, me doing my own research, me also knowing the right people to ask, people whose hands that, have held my hand and walked this journey have been so fruitful. And of course, I'm looking forward to also hosting a lot more of the Sowetan IDC Youth Fund offerings to come. I know this is the first one, and I can't wait to see what's to come from this. So, a little bit of my story. I hope that inspires you and you can see and witness the investment the IDC has made in our film industry. And as we all know, young filmmakers are currently dominating, right? Right? No, you guys aren't convinced. Young filmmakers are currently dominating, right? I personally witnessed this, and I know that young lady, Hope, can also attest to it. At the Joburg Film Festival a few weeks ago, I remember the founder, Tim Mangwede, saying that the most attended films were the ones from young filmmakers. So if that's not evidence for you to get up and believe in your stories and ideas, I don't know what else you need me to say. All right, needless to say, Sowetan and the IDC have already recognized that and know what's up. And of course, that's why we're here today. So if you want to be part of South Africa's next generation of storytellers, this is your moment, guys. It starts here. All right, without further ado, let's kick things off from one of our hosts. She's a powerhouse of note, MD of Indigenous Films, someone I personally can't wait to work with. She has played the pivotal role in many groundbreaking film distributions. She's one of them, obviously, being the Oscar-nominated and winning history-making film Tsotsi. Come on, we remember that monumental moment. Please help me welcome Helen Kuhn.
I'm supposed to stand here, right? It's really unfair, I have to say, just as an aside, IDC and good friends at Sowetan to make me come up here and talk after that wonderful introduction with someone that knows how to do this for a living. So thank you for that. I'll keep it in mind for next time to make sure at least a guy must come after that, not me. So thanks for the elaborate introduction, Ambita. I really appreciate it. I'm going to take a page from your book and just give you a little bit of information about Indigenous because we've walked this road with you. we were just talking about it earlier. I was also one of the people that, and still am, believed in local films to such an extent that I left the corporate that I was working for at the time and started Indigenous with a bunch of credit cards and 80,000 Rand on the credit cards. And that's like the craziest thing you can do, but I think it's the kind of thing that filmmakers do all the time. So what I want to say is I understand your pain of growing from that to where you want to go to, because there is no other way of learning this industry but by doing it. And of course the networking and the partnerships that you form along the way. We would never have survived and never have grown and never have built any relationships if there weren't other like-minded people in the landscape. We're really privileged to have a company like the IDC stepping into this youth filmmaker space in such a significant fashion. And when I say we, I mean us as an industry, not one given entity or company. So I think the best place to start around film and content is always to contextualize the landscape. Because it's changed so radically in the last 5 years, which you all know. I mean, I always find it interesting to see in a room how many of you have been to a cinema in the last month, and I'm going to ask you to participate here, please. Been to a cinema to see a local film, and then I'm going to ask, watch the local film or local series on Netflix or Showmax or Amazon Prime, so I can get a sense of the room. So, first off, who's been to a cinema in the last month? Okay, that's encouraging. And who's been to a cinema to see a local film? This is not on you. It's the short amount of films, short list of films that's been released in the last. Okay, that's, you know, we're pushing through. Who's watched anything local, series or film on Netflix in the last month? You see, that's the other half of the people that haven't been in cinema. That's where you went. And who has seen anything local on, let's say, Showmax, which is obviously a very strong offering. Okay, so that's great to understand. So we've got a really representative audience of what you're going to be looking at and what you're interested in seeing. So landscape. In the last, let's start with not millennials, but Generation Z, is at the moment between, well, 37% of people in South Africa are between the ages of 15 and 35. I'm sure you guys are all part of that, right? Maybe there's someone not quite 15, but in that bracket. And the quotient of that in Africa is 40%, the same age group. So the combination of Gen Z and Generation Alpha, a little bit of spillover from millennials, is literally, if you stretch it a little bit, it's nearly half of the population in any given country or space in Africa at the moment. And this is, by all accounts, based on all forecasts and research, just going to grow. So I don't think it's ever been more true, also based on that point about the Joburg Film Festival, to say that the audience that will frequently interact with our stories and listen to the voices of our filmmakers and content creators are in this age group. Because if we miss you with storytelling, or the filmmakers miss you with storytelling in this age group, it's really tough to find you by the time people are older than 35. I mean, statistically, you make all your key entertainment choices before the age of 30. So to change some of those habits after the age of 35 is really, really challenging. So, the research group of one is a good place to start. Say, what am I watching? What are my friends saying? Which debates are we having? But don't make it a self-fulfilling prophecy, because your friends are going to be impressed by the fact that you're a filmmaker and your creative voice, and maybe intimidated and really just wants to tell you that it's great. You'll have a friend or two that will be absolutely honest with you, but bear that in mind when you start testing your content against audiences. So right now, to give you a sense of what's out there from the point of view of filmmakers that have worked with you, will work with you, it came in prior decades, is in South Africa in the last, since 2000, that's when I'm qualifying Gen Z and Gen Alpha, between the year 2000 and last year, 348 South African films were released in cinemas locally. That accounted for a total of just over 800 million rand in box office and just over 22 million attendances. Now, I'm not going to contextualize it for you in the context of the rest of the content. I think that's what we all here to talk about, right? So the local films are the ones that count. It basically gives you an average of about 14 local films going out in cinema every year. That's a zigzag, though. You know, an average is always a midpoint. Obviously, you're going to have years that had 3 films, and you're going to have years that had 29 films. But it gives you a good size understanding of the pool of storytelling that's been around you, that you may have engaged with, as a factual starting point. Next to that, the streaming advent obviously came during COVID to South Africa. Both Showmax and Netflix were available since 2015 here, but the uptake was really tiny for all the reasons that I'm sure we don't have to cite: internet and broadband access and. In 2015, Showmax started off with 28,000 subscribers. That scooped up to 1 million just after COVID. And then at the moment, they've gone to just over 2 million. They're predicting to get to 2.7 million subscribers in 2029. Netflix, similar curve, but faster. They started off with 124,000 subscribers on the continent in 2015. That jumped to 2.7 million subscriptions after COVID. And depending on what you read, because these numbers have a trend, it's difficult to find the really accurate one, but depending on what you read, they're sitting on about, over 4.5 million at the moment, and they predict to be on about 6.7 million subscribers in Africa by the time we get to 2029. So those are the 2 key streamers, obviously, in the space at the moment. Amazon Prime is there, and each of these, on their platforms, what's available. Okay, they're there. This is the number of people that's watching. On the platform, how much African content is available? 3 countries are dominant: South Africa, Nigeria, and Egypt. And the number of titles available on Netflix as a whole in Africa is just over 6,500 as an offering, of which 551 are local projects. Local now in this instance being South Africa, Nigeria, and Egypt combined, plus whichever other country managed to make content that they got into Netflix at the time. Prime actually has a higher ratio. They have over 1,600 local content offerings. Again, I'm qualifying local content here, not just the South African at the moment. And the top line of titles available in Africa from Prime is just over 21,000. Both of these platforms, for the record, have Netflix worldwide has just over 38,000 titles available, and Amazon worldwide has somewhat more than that. It's closer to 40, again, depending on what you read. And the other strong platform is Shahid in North Africa, which is where you see Egypt featuring quite strongly. So that's the immediate environment. There's also, interestingly enough, and I think this is where challenge and opportunity meet. There's 552 streaming platforms in Africa that's being tracked. Not talking about the ones in, let's call streaming OTT in this instance. Half of these, more or less, are paid for platforms. The others are free or free with ads. Now, there's opportunity, because in this instance, you start looking at regional availability that gives you the opportunity to exploit or explore, rather. Exploit is not an ideal word for this kind of discussion. Local languages, dubbing to other languages on the continent, and of course outside of live action, animation, because animation can be reversioned and dubbed and made available to kids, especially kids animation, in a limitless number of languages. So that's, let's call it the world of competition around you, and the only way that changes is if you drive it by evolving your creative voices and evolving your business capacities. I wanted to use something Vuzi was telling me the other day. Now I'm worried because I saw him. So I didn't clear this comment, but I'm going to do it anyway. There's a difference between voice of narrative, obviously, and how narrative is carried into the rest of the world. And these filmmakers are very wise. They often give you the quotes that are so unexpected, but so true, that it just sticks in your mind. So the narrative from Africa to the world has been, as we know, dominated by, to an extent, co-productions, which account for about 58% of all productions that happen here. But also to an extent by what is a commercial property, which is different from, I don't want to call it art house, but let's call it films and TV series that make you think, question, and repositions us as people. And we have a completely unmined environment of stories that are based on truth, real lived experiences, and no one else can tell those stories the way that you guys can. It doesn't matter who comes along with what amount of money. They're not going to have the insight into a particular narrative environment or lived experience in the way that you do. And the Gen Alphas are the first generation born in this millennia, right? So we really have a shift in worldwide content offerings happening here. So the opportunities in caps here, right? So what Wizzy was saying is, it's very important that young people own this narrative. That the way our stories are told is told in a voice that is our young people and telling our stories to the rest of the world in that way. I mean, one of the examples of films that he's made is obviously Letters of Hope and Surviving Gaza. We've got another one coming out from Asanda, she's also here, called Blackburn's Fast, which is very interesting. Again, there's so much to learn from you guys as young filmmakers. It's actually a Brazilian story that she repositioned in our environment. And it's extraordinary to see how our worlds speak to one another. So without harping on and on, I think what's important to understand is, obviously, that's the landscape. That's where you're living. You're part of the worldwide community doing this work, because nothing changes society's psychographics, ultimately more than storytelling. And we all know that is from here. Our continent, our people, with all our different environments, experiences, languages, over 2,000 on the continent, dialects, all of that storytelling originated on this continent, in our world, our version, whatever part of that world you form. And that remains the way that psychographics of people, the view of people of a country and an economic environment, a film producing environment, the quality of that, it comes through story. So to round that up is, story doesn't live alone, of course. Build teams, work together. To tackle these things alone doesn't go anywhere. To have partners in funding, partners in distribution, partners in writing, producing, acting, and own it. I think there's all this 80,000 hours of content, for instance, in a MultiChoice or a Showmax environment. Most of it's commissioned. I think what this kind of funding and discussion environment enables is for you to start thinking about, how do you own what you make, or a stake of it, and how can you continue to build your production company by monetizing that again and again and again. You can make your own remakes, spin-offs, sequels. IP is not just what's been written in a book or what's been published in a newspaper. It is also the world of storytelling, which is a lived experience from generation to generation. So for me, that's the most important thing about today, is it opens the doors for all the young people in the room and the ones that you work with and your mentors and the rest of us behind the scenes to get content in front of audiences, to own those stories, and for that to become a business for you and your peers in your own environment. That's my story. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Helen. Ownership, ownership, ownership. I took a page out of that. Thank you for giving us a good insight into the landscape, psychographics, and also just putting that little pin of ownership versus whether we want to license or commission. I think that's the smarter way, is to own your IP, because your story can live on. You can keep reselling and reselling. Thank you for that. I'm taking notes as I'm sitting down. Now, of course, we wouldn't be here without our second host, the Industrial Development Corporation, or what I like to call where the money resides, right? Yes. He is the head of the Services Strategic Business Unit at the IDC, essentially leading the team that does the deals for our media and audiovisual sector. Please help me welcome onto stage Kagiso Maphela.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Thank you for taking time on this rainy day to come and grace us here. See if we have a full house. But I know the film guys are tricky. This house may not be full. It's just an illusion. But I'm greatly humbled to see industry leaders who are here to support the young people. As the IDC, we've been funding film pretty much since democracy came into play. And some of the old films you can think about came out of the IDC funding. But one of the things we've come to acknowledge and realize over time is that we have never really been intentional in how we build this industry, building it from the ground up, if you can say. We've been chasing blockbusters where we lose most of our money without really being clear about how do we really put the industry together. And roundabout, I think after COVID, IDC had lost enough money and decided, you know what, we are done with these people, and they shut down that industry funding. And fortunately, I think for a number of reasons, including political pressure, they reopened the funding to the sector. And we're like, how do we then do this thing differently? And I think today is the culmination of a conversation that happened in Berlin. I think it was in 2024, right? We were in Berlin in 2024 with Malibongwe, one of our speakers today, and we're trying to figure out how do we then understand the global market, what do we do in South Africa to make sure that we can support the industry. And we met a group of 5 young women who were sponsored by the National Film and Video Foundation, and they were part of some program at Berlin to showcase their work, and they were doing great things. And we listened to them to say, but what brings you guys here? What productions do you have? What kind of support do you need? And over a couple of days, we had dialogues about the gaps in the market. We went back to look at our information. We see that young people actually play a major role. Arguably, more than half of the jobs we have created in the sector, which is just under 7,000 now, are young people. So the idea was then, how do we facilitate ownership of content or an ownership of IP by young people in the sector? What are the limitations that they are facing, and how do we unlock that? And this is where the idea of a youth-focused funding scheme came through. Fortunately for us, IDC has all sorts of solutions, trust me. We can solve this country overnight if we had capacity. And we found out there was cheap money available in the building that could actually work for young people. It had support, a lot of other soft support that we can use, and it was never used for film. The same way that our biggest transaction we did was unemployment insurance fund scheme that had cheap money, but never used for film. And I think we need to tell our story better, and that's why I'm appealing to the filmmakers. This industry remains the future of this country as far as job creation is concerned. The entry levels are not as onerous as other industries. We are a bit more nimble in how we do things, and we create assets that have an infinite useful life, if you can call it that. So in our thinking, we thought, okay, let's put together some money and see if we can get young people to be funded. And over time, I think over the past 12 months or so, we've come to realize that young people actually are the drivers of content creation. It's just that because there's not much support for them, they do not have means to create their own businesses. For example, if you think about the Joburg Film Festival that they were mentioning now, the best film, Africa film at the film festival was directed by a young producer. Directed by a young director. I'll get the terminology right. And produced by a young producer. That tells you that our young people are capable of creating the kind of content that can actually be appealing to the audience and also be able to make money. So what we've imagined, number one, IDC, all we can do is provide money. But we've had overwhelming response from the industry in terms of different players in the industry, experienced producers, equipment suppliers, distribution companies, theatrical cinemas that are all coming on board to say, How do we then help you to make sure that the young people, they can create their product, number one, and their product can reach the markets they are looking for? And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I'd just like to say, this is just the beginning, the introduction of an idea. And I think the team that's coming after me will share with you the details of how we're looking to roll this thing out. And also remember, what we're saying today is based on what we know. So feel free to give feedback to make sure that the solutions that we put together actually addresses the problems you are dealing with. So we don't end up with policy that doesn't speak to the needs of the people on the ground. And we remain open to feedback so we can constantly be improving this. I know you guys understand what pre-production is, so today is the beginning of pre-production. And then by the time we fully roll out the cameras and we start funding you, we want to make sure that at least we have something that resonates with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kagisho. Well, while we are in pre-production, I also want to encourage you all, before I introduce our next two speakers, to just, think about the questions you might have. I'm going to open up the floor, and I know live streaming as well, you can start thinking about the questions you might have for our two gentlemen, because I think this is the feedback you want, right? So let's encourage the room for dialogue, but to get into the nitty-gritty of meeting the team and get further insight into who the IDC funds, forms of capital, the different funding considerations, and really answer all the questions that we have. Please help me welcome the deal maker, Malibongwe Nzuza.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, yeah, the house is full, eh? Yeah. Malibongwe Nzuza, as she has indicated, I'm a deal maker at the IDC. Well, Kagisho is my boss, so if I'm not doing things right, you can report to him. Deal maker, we essentially looking at the transactions, so the applications that you will be bringing through to the IDC will probably be coming through to me and part of our team. It's we've got a team that looks after the transactions that come through. So if you bring in the transactions, the deal makers they make sure they look at the transactions, and we are the people that you will essentially be interacting with. If you've got questions, some clarity on what you actually need, and on what you are proposing to the IDC, to see if it's something that the IDC is gonna be looking. It's something that we can look at. So I'm quickly going to take you through on maybe give you a high level of what IDC does, and then I'll get into the nitty-gritties of how we fund the projects that come through to the IDC. What do we look at, and just a bit of the technicalities that are there if you are looking to get funding from the IDC. IDC, it is the largest DFI that we have in the country. We've got other DFIs like NEF. I think they were also funding in the space, but IDC, it is the biggest DFI. I think my boss, Kagisho, has indicated that we were funding in the space and we took a break at some point because we lost money. But we are back in the space and we are really motivated to do funding in the space because we view it as the future. I think Helen has also touched a bit in the fact that we are really intentional on trying to get the indie filmmakers to own their content. So yeah, we do fund we do fund the commission projects if it comes through, but we are really more intentional on getting the funding to the indie filmmakers so that they own their content. I think there's been some sad stories in the media of the creatives who actually die poor because they didn't really own their content. So we don't want that, and I'm happy I'm talking to the youth, which is the future of this country, to really pull up the socks and own their content. Back IDC, we trying to build industrial capacity. We're funding quite a number of sectors in the DFI funds a number of sectors in the economy. Agro, machinery, and looking at quite a number of sectors. But within those sectors, we've got the services business units, which is looking more on the services. In those services, we've got tourism, healthcare, ICT, and then the media and audiovisual parts, which is maybe the focus of this discussion. Media and audiovisual, we look at media and then the filmmaking within that sector. Let me move. Mandate of the IDC is to essentially do the development throughout the country. So we are the biggest DFI, but we are owned by the government, but we are not really funded by the government, and maybe that's the reason why, or on why we provide the type of funding that we're providing in the sector that I'm going to talk to. It's more loans or recoupable funding, as it is typically positioned in the media and audiovisual sector. It's a recoupable funding that we provide in the sector. Well, because we are, as much as we are government-owned, we are not government-funded. So the funds that we generate, say, through interest, and they need to come back so that we can fund other producers and keep the chain going. So we fund even more people. So those who are more developed and they can fund their own projects, they then do that so that we fund more and more and more and develop the sector, make it big so that we achieve the IDC's mandate. The core values of the IDC is growing sustainable industries. Yeah, the focus is growing the sustainable industries throughout the country and to do transformation. Skip this. And then coming down to the media and audiovisual units, the units we're focusing more on funding feature films, documentaries. We are across the entire value chain of the media and audiovisual space. Yeah, and then now the reason why we exist, why the unit exists, it is to fund, it's essentially the entire value chain that's in the media and audiovisual. So we're starting at the production or pre-production is typically funded by your NFVF and the film commissions. I think as you go through the applications, you will understand that the pre-production parts is typically funded by the film commissions. Well, some put in funds for themselves. But we will typically come in for production, post-production. We do broadcast studios, be it radio or the film. Well, podcast studios, if they will make money, we will consider them. And we'll find the creation of platforms, the platforms that then distribute the media. Yeah, if you've got a proposal for creating such a platform, well, competitors to your Netflix, Showmax, and you are welcome to bring that to the IDC with a business case, and then we will take a look at it and see how we can assist you in funding that. What we are looking to achieve, or additional considerations that we have, it's that development. It's, developing black industrialists. Yeah, I see in the house, it's mainly people of color, if I can call it that. But we do not discriminate. We do have the objective to fund the black industrialists or develop that part of the industry. It's part of what we do. We've had some success stories, like the series that we funded around the world in 80 days. Yeah, I think it was on Netflix. You can see it there. It's part of what the IDC has funded. Maybe down to the nitty-gritties of what we fund. It's almost everything in the media and audiovisual chain. Feature films, we look at that, the series, gaming, and educational content. Yeah, well, provided there is a business case for it, we look at all that's under content creation. Under production facilities, it's all production facilities. Sound stages, that's for television and film. If you are creating that, if you want to build that, and you have a pipeline for productions from a studio, we will look at that. I think I indicated earlier on the radio studios, we do look at that as well. If you've got a business case for that, it's also a part of our value chain. We do look at that. And companies that are looking to provide a rental gear or all the filming equipment, we do look at those for entrepreneurs who are thinking along those lines of providing the production equipment to the producers, okay, letting that out to the producers. We do look at that. And I'll say we're not really limited. If we've got something that's in the space and there is a business case for it, you are welcome to bring it to the IDC, and we will look at the proposal and then advise you if it's something that we really can do. On the post-production side, we also look at it's almost everything that's happening on the post-production side. Post-production facilities, if you want to create that and own that and service the producers who want to utilize that, we do look at such post-production, okay, including dubbing. And if you want to set up a distribution company, that we will look at as well, funding into that. Okay, what sort of funding do we provide in the space? In the most, it's we will look at providing loan funding. I think I indicated earlier why we were going for recoupable funding, because IDC, we are self-funded DFI. So we will instruments that we will use in a project. It's typically loan funding. That loan funding, we normally use that for maybe cash flowing of pre-sales. Well, yeah, DTIC. If DTIC will be giving you a tax rebate, we will look to use a loan funding to provide you funding on that. Maybe the MG as well. If you've got that, we do welcome that. We can cash flow that for you if it's going to be part of your financing plan. But we've also taken equity positions in some of the films. I think it was the film Boy Kills World. If you've seen that, we've taken equity position on such. So our committees, they are quite open if there is a proposal and it really makes sense to go for that proposal. So we do have loan funding and equity funding. We do consider what we call a venture loan. It's a quasi-equity instrument, so it's something between the loan and equity. We do provide that as well for the films. I think in the most, that's what we provide to cover the gap that's usually left after you've put together all your receivables, maybe be it something from NFVF and the pre-sale or MG that you are putting in as part of financing. Yeah, if there's still a gap, we'll use that quasi-equity instrument. It's something between a loan and equity funding. We will use that to fill in the gap so that you can go ahead and do your production. So in the essence of it, maybe don't really get caught up on what type of funding instrument do we use. We will typically look at your application and see what really can work best for that production. And we will obviously work with you along the way to give you the best solution for what you are proposing. Okay. And on how exactly do we assess the transactions? What do we need, or what do we look at the IDC before we can give you money? In the essence of it, we look at three things. One will be relating to production risk, so that will be more the technicalities on can you actually produce a good quality film, or a film of quality that will be accepted by, say, your streamers or the cinemas. No. Okay, we don't really want low quality films, generally. But I'll have to say, in South Africa, the quality of films. I almost said there is a country up north in the continent. It produces quite a high volume, but the quality, generally in South Africa, the quality of films is it's quite good. I'm sure maybe if you've worked with some of the producers, directors in the country, the quality of our films is quite good. So technically, or the production risk is usually not a problem in our space. There is a market risk. That's usually the biggest problem that we have. well, I'm glad I'm coming after Helen as well. She did mention earlier that you need to survey the landscape before you produce a film, so that you know who you're producing for, or if there is a market for that film. That's usually the biggest problem in our space with the applications that come through. That we will ask the producer to at least test the market and see if there is appetite from the streamer or the distributor feels that there is a market for it. Probably they are willing to give a minimum guarantee. So that's part of what we look at. But we will typically ask for you to go look at getting a pre-sale, maybe Netflix or Showmax. If they say, yeah, we can give you a pre-sale on this, then we will accept that there is a market for your film, and there is someone interested in your film. After these two, we will typically then look to the overall wrapping it up of putting these together in looking at the finances of it, but that's more to what I've been talking to on which instruments to apply, so that the finances of the business or the SPV that you're using to apply makes sense. Yeah, and now before you secure the bag, say, yeah, our observations to this point is that, product development. If you're developing a product, we will just want to make sure that there is it follows the trends and there is a demand for it. And the technicalities that's sorted, it's just a part of what I've been talking to. And the lack of markets and distribution, that's usually the most difficult part of it with the applications that come through. So if that is sorted, you'll get the money. If the market part is sorted, you'll usually get the money. I think my brother Mpumezo used to say, if you've got a business case, all the other things, it's just administration. So yeah, if you've got the market, more likely you will get the funding. And I did say we do work with the team. Kagisho was here. We've got our divisional executive, Bongani Mia. Unfortunately, he couldn't make it here, but the head of the unit, Kagisho, is here. And on the deal-making side, there's myself and Songezo. Yeah, Songezo, I'll ask you to stand up so that everyone can see you. It's not just me. More likely, if your applications are not coming to me, they'll be going to him. Yeah, well, he's part of the youth, so he will have more pity on you. Yeah, some of the films that we've produced, and they've done quite well. I'm sure you've seen some of them. It's quite good work. I think I'll leave it there, and maybe ask Mr. Manyatsa to come join so that he can give you a bit more news on the specific funds that are for the youth. Thank you. Thanks, Michelle.
For Q&A. Good afternoon. How are you guys? Oh, you know what? I was just before I came on stage, I read something. I want to read it for you quickly. It says, young people, so those who know will know where I took this. Young people, enjoy your youth. Be happy while you are still young. Do what you want to do and follow your heart's desires. And then there's a very nice sentence. It says, because you are not going to be young forever. So that is important. I thought I should read that to you because it's important. You're not going to be young forever. And as opportunity presents themselves now, you need to take them as quickly as possible. Okay. So my name is Manyatsa Nkuta. I'm responsible for youth enterprises at IDC. So my job with my colleague Joy is to look for young people, women, who want to get money from IDC. Assist them to ensure that they get money from IDC. That's what we do every day. So we have different SBUs within the IDC. So their job, like Mali was just saying here, their job is to get transactions. So they chase transactions. They really don't care whether the transaction is from a young person or from a woman. What is important for them is to take the transaction, get it approved. And we are chasing them. Guys, where are the young people? Why are you not funding young people? Why are you not funding women? So then, because of that pressure that we exert on them, they, fund women and youth. So when the big boss was speaking here, he said they conceptualized this thing when they were in Berlin. Eh? You said Berlin? Yeah. So so they came back because we have a youth-specific fund. They came to us and said, guys, we really want to have something for young people. What can we do? And this is now what culminated into what we are launching today. So, and we said to him, we have Grow Youth Scheme. It provides funding to young people. We can do some tweaks to ensure that we provide funding to young people. So that's exactly what we did. And then we then said, okay, although Grow Youth Scheme funds everyone who is young within the IDC, but what is it that we can do to ensure that we customize it? There's a big word that Joy uses, bespoke. So we make it more specific to youth. So this is the culmination of that. Okay. So as I was just introducing Grow Youth Scheme, so part of my job is to also manage this particular fund because it's a youth fund. So we try and strategize and come up with ideas that can bring more transactions of young people. So when we report as an IDC, we report on how many billions we have disbursed, all those important things. But we also say how many of that money went to women, how much of that money went to youth. So guys, we are struggling. We're not really reaching our targets of youth, and I don't know where young people of this country are. So why are you not coming to get the money, guys? What's happening? So the money is available. Mali said if you have an acceptable transaction or a proposal, the rest of the things can be sorted out. If you have a market for your transaction, everything else will be sorted out. So let me tell you quickly about what Grow Youth is. So this was actually conceptualized in the sense that, okay, we need to get more young people participating within the economy of South Africa. So then IDC created a billion rand. Guys, this is billion, billion rand. So for young people specifically. So we created a billion rand youth fund. So it has two parts. One is funding, and then the second part is non-financial support. So then I'll explain to you what that means. So the funding part is 950 million rand. That will go into funding your transaction, your project, your film, and all those things. So we will do that in the form of quasi-equity, equity, and loans. And then we provide for young people, this is specifically for young people, between 1 and 50 million rand. So that's what the Grow Youth Scheme covers. And then now, who should apply? Young people that I spoke about, because you are not going to be, before you know it, you'll be 36, and you. so please, guys, the opportunity is right now. And then we'll be talking about those who are young at heart. No. So we want young people, not those who are young at heart. But here, okay, so the transaction then becomes youth when it is owned by a young person, 51%. So then it becomes, so if you have other partners who are older than 35, but the majority of the shares are owned by a young person, you will be able to access the opportunities that are brought by this transaction. And then we have what we call youth participation. This is where a young person owns 25% and more of the shares. So then that's youth participation. But generally, ownership is 50 plus 1. What you need to pass at university, 50 plus 1. All right, so as we said, we're talking about economic merit. Even if it comes from a young person, it must still make sense. You still have to make money. Because, guys, you're not going into business for the sake of making good films. It's good, you should do that, but you must also make money. We need to see you, being successful and making a little bit of money. So it's only available to South Africans and permanent residents. The reason is simple, although IDC funds everywhere in the rest of Africa, but this is specifically for South African youth. So it's only available to South African youth. If somebody from Lesotho comes, we will fund them, but obviously they will not access the opportunities that are coming with this particular funding. All right, it's something very interesting now. Youth Pipeline Development Program, what does that mean? This means it's a non-financial support tool that we provide to young people. So, because we understand that you might not have certain things and you might not have money to do those things, this man, when you bring your transaction, he will say, I want, how long have you been in business? You say 2 years. They will say, I want financials for your business. Do you have them? Then you are running around, you don't have. So what we're saying is that if he likes your idea, and he say, Manyaza, here is this young person, we want to fund them, but their finances are not in order. Can you help them? So we can take from this 50 million, pay a service provider, help you with the financials, and then you have a better chance of getting the money now that you have your ducks in a row. I'm just making an example with financials. In fact, we're talking with Kagiso that maybe what we should do, this is still an idea, maybe I won't be fired by him for saying this. So what we were thinking was that sometimes for you to get a pre-sale, you need to show people something, to say this is what I can do and sometimes you don't have money to do that. So what we were thinking to do with this money was maybe to create something like that, where we can give a young person some money to create a trailer. Is it called a trailer? Yeah, a trailer or something, whatever, hypnosis, whatever. Then that you can go to Netflix and say, this is what I want to do, and then maybe they will like it. Because if it's just on paper, it might not really make sense. So we're looking at that. We'll probably let you know when that is ready. But these are the innovations that we're trying to bring. So this timer is timing me, so I should be finished when it gets to 0. Okay, all right. Okay, no, I just needed to know. Okay, qualifying criteria, guys. So it says 4 minutes now. So to qualify, it's similar to you must be young, you must be South African, your transaction must be in line with what the SBU wants, and they must be happy that it's something that when we invest that money, then your transaction will be closer to success. And then, as you can see, it's a lot of money that we can actually invest in this thing. So let's bring those ideas. Okay, all right. So this is the application process. So what we have done now with the launch of this. So when you go to our website, you'll probably see where where we're talking about this, and then you click there, then you apply online. You are more than welcome to contact me and contact Mali. Oh, Okay. So you are more than welcome to speak to me or Mali or any other person, and then we can then take you through the application process. But in essence is that get your house in order, guys, please. Have your CIPC, have your all those documentation. Let's get them out of the way and now concentrate on content creation. We don't want your transaction to be declined because of you know, the small things that need to be done. So we're trying to, particularly for you, because we know you like you know, online things. You don't want to go to IDC. So when you get to IDC, it's a big hall between the reception and the entrance. So you walk, and then they are looking at you as you come, and then you get you get nervous, you know. So maybe it's less stressful to just do it online, and then you are happy. So I've been instructed. This is the end of what I need to do. So I've been instructed very carefully to say what I'm going to say. So I'm going to play. Now we're going to play a video of some of the transactions that were funded by IDC. I am saying, next time when I do this, it will be your film. It will be your film. I cannot wait really for us to do that. So and then Tibazo will kill me if I don't say this. From Africa to the world. Thank you so much.
The IDC intends to strengthen the local film industry and ensure that filmmakers and producers create compelling films and content that is commercially viable for local and international audiences. Having funded films such as Long Walk to Freedom, which depicted the remarkable life story of South African revolutionary, president, and world icon Nelson Mandela, the IDC has strategically recognized the film and content creation sector of the media industry as a catalyst for economic growth. From the Emerging Black Filmmakers Transformation Fund, the film Baby Mamas gives us a glimpse into the comedic and often not so smooth lives women navigate.
I'm still young and there's things I want to do. There's these new sneakers coming out.
Along with a continued effort to bolster facilities by financing creative infrastructure in the form of studios such as the Cape Town Film Studios and technical equipment, the IDC is geared to establish a sustainable audio-visual value chain in South Africa. Once upon a time in South Africa, a legendary outlaw was born. This Robin Hood-like figure stole from colonialist farmers to give to his people. The Professionals is a made-for-TV action series which is a co-production between South Africa, Ireland and Latvia.
You know, getting shot isn't as bad as I thought it would be.
Yeah? Tell it to your hands.
The secret to happiness is one being comfortable in one's own skin. Singleholic is an international co-production with the US and explores the journey of a woman who lives out the simple truth.
To be honest, I'm only on these dating sites because of my mom.
Nestled in Johannesburg and rife with surprises and awkward situations, the Netflix original, Seriously Single, offers a fresh twist on rom-coms.
To be done with me! Yes!
By implementing a holistic approach that includes all players along the entire production process, from concept to distribution, the IDC is able to realize a sustainable media and audiovisual industry that feeds off itself and can contribute more to the growth of the economy.
Shoo! So I have got something to say to you, Manyatsa. A challenge, right? You said you've got a target and you cover youth and women. Am I correct?
Yes.
Kaloku, we've got the same mics. Remember, you were showing off to me. We've got the same mics now. So you can respond. So I was sitting there and I'm already thinking, you know, we've got Malibongwe, we've got Manyatsa here, we've got obviously our signing off power there. Where's Kagisho? There we go. Yes. So I'm going to propose something, right? To help you with that target, I've got a global woman empowerment movement called She Speaks by Lady Nam in partnership with Global Citizens since 2018. I run a workshop called Business of the Arts, where we go around the country giving these workshops. I had a sold-out one in Gqeberha, where I'm from, where I had people from Tata drive through. So if you really need to bridge that gap of the youth and women, that is my target market, let's close a deal right now. Deal maker? IDC partner of She Speaks by Lady Nam Business of the Arts workshop. Are we closing a deal? Oh, we will talk about it in the network session. I've already got, since 2018, we've been global, we've done the things. I'll manage your risk, all of those things are there. The housework is done. Do we have a deal? Sure, signing power.
Delegate, man.
Come on, we've got witnesses. Come on, guys, you're going to see this. IDC in partnership with She Speaks by Lady Nam, Business of the Arts workshop, bridging the gap, reaching the youth all over the country. Come on, birthing filmmakers. Do we have a deal? Okay. Thank you. I'm not an award-winning entrepreneur for nothing, guys. This is how you grab your opportunities, okay? I might be emceeing, but I'm also here to close a deal. So thank you very much. I have witnesses. Tebato, I've got your marketing on lock, girl. I got you, okay? So as we've seen the dialogue, I'm not joking, by the way. And after a very informative talk with the IADC, I'm going to not take up too much of your time now. This is the time where we get to ask some questions. So we're going to choose 3 questions from the audience. And I do have the online streamers here with 2 questions. So I'm going to open the floor. Is everyone ready? Do you have your questions ready? Perfect. So we're only going to choose 3. I hope. Okay, we've got 1, 2, 3. The first hand was our lady here in the yellow hoodie. Please, can you stand up when you're asking a question? Introduce yourself. Tell us where you're from also. We want to get to know, obviously, the demographics, or they also get the feedback they've been wanting. So, this young lady, thank you.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. My name is Noma Xabiso Mahlawe. I run a film studio for kids between the ages of 10 to 18 when we started. We've incorporated 18 to 24 because kids are growing fast. So we started in 2021 during COVID in East London. And then we grew the portfolio to 5 provinces in the country. And now we are looking to settle in Johannesburg and create a film studio physically. All along, we've been doing a lot of things virtually, and then we implement physically. So I have one question that is related to what we have received here. By the way, I just want to say I'm so glad that the IDC has decided to focus on the youth, and I'm hoping that the youth is not going to just be from 18 to 35, which is what has been. I just want to promise you that ever since we started, we have, you can go to, I have at least 10 of the kids that we started with. They were 14 then, now they are at varsity. They probably would be here now because above 18. And we did a business plan competition that was run by the MTN on the basis of a film title that we had internally that was funded by the GFC. So we're doing serious work here. The other thing that we're doing, we're not doing animation yet. We did animated stories, but they were so good that we have evolved them into an animation feature. We haven't been able to find funding for that. So the question I have is, are we going to start at 18? Because the film studio that we're going to have is for, it's starting younger. And we want to establish. It doesn't matter, IDC today or next year might not maybe buy it, but we are going to have it. Whether you are going to buy it now, maybe in 3 years' time, we are going to have the film studio, and the kids that we are talking about have won internationally in a kids film festival in Italy. So we have things to produce to say, this is what we're doing. So that was my question. Thank you very much.
Well, I'm not so sure if there was a question, but so what I can say is that although today we're talking about youth, IDC funds everybody, even older people. The only difference is that this one is much cheaper. It has, because as I said, that there are so many things that young people do not have. If you are older, you can call your friends, you can do this and that, and be able to use your social capital to access certain things. But as a young person, you don't have. You're really relying on the content that you have, and that's it, and the trust that people would put on what you have. So just be rest assured, if you are here and you are older than 35, no stress about it. We'll just add 3% more interest, and then you'll be good. So you shouldn't worry too much. We are happy to look at what you are doing and see how best we can finance you. As I said, the most important thing, Malibongwe stressed on this, that the most important thing, it must make business sense. Yeah. It must be within our mandate, and the rest of the things will be sorted out. Mali, cool. Are you okay?
Yeah. Okay. As a business unit, we're not only looking at youth. So if you have a proposal and we're above 36, we do welcome those, and we consider them the business case and fund accordingly.
No 3% interest. All right. Second question, if we can get from this side, please. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Hope Marega. I am a multifaceted storyteller who works in film, radio, and I have my own media house. I want to ask, thank you so much, IDC, for this incredible opportunity for the youth. But I want to speak now in terms of practicality as well. I think a lot of the youth want these opportunities, but they don't know how to get them. So not only is the funding important, but I think the understanding of the funding and the understanding of how to package yourself as a young filmmaker. So I don't know if there could be workshops also that could be offered to the youth. I think it would be important outside of just funding, but with even the fund, the one that you don't have to have the loan, how can you guys offer services to the youth beyond money, actual mentorship? How do you do a treatment? Because I think a lot of the youth, they have these bold ideas, but they don't know how to package themselves. Secondly, film is not just about the stories, but the business of film. So how do you then teach about the production and the business that the youth need to understand? Because it doesn't matter if you have a story, if you don't know how to sell the story, you'll never make the story. My last question is, I'm very passionate about distribution, and distribution is something in the film industry that I am trying to understand, but I don't. So how can, with the distribution models and the plans and the funding for that, how can you make it practical for a young person to be passionate? Like Ndogozo has Umpagati artists, and he goes into local communities, teaching them and screening local productions. So he's one person. How many other kids want to show their films, but they don't know how to? So those are my questions.
You want us to take them now?
Of course. I mean,
Right.
I gave you a solution to
Okay,
one of
no,
them.
thank you so much. Hope, I think you're raising a very important point. I think we had this discussion with Kagiso the other day that we need to explain much more in detail what we mean by funding. Just a simple concept of funding, because sometimes when we talk funding, people think it's a grant. So we'll give you money and you don't have to pay it back. But guys, you said it's funding, man. Now why do you want me to pay back? So, guys, we don't provide grants. We provide interest-bearing loans, and I think, hope you are spot on. Maybe it's something that we need to really think long and hard about to ensure that we impart as much knowledge so that when a young person comes to IDC and they get 10 million rand, they know what they're getting themselves into. That this is a commercial transaction. We want that money back. And let me also say this. We are a DFI, we are owned by government. So some people have a mindset that, so why should I bring back the money because it's government money? The same reason you had to pay back NAFSAS, the same reason you must pay IDC because we need to reinvest this money to help other people, to help to ensure that we continuously fund new projects and new business. So we take that to heart. We will definitely try and provide, maybe think of workshops. And then you spoke about non-financial support. Non-financial support, mentorship, and all those things are important. So with the YPDP that I was talking about, we are able to provide that. Let's say the Malibongwe assesses this transaction and they say, we like this transaction, but maybe this producer or this group of young people, they really don't have experience. And for us to get Helen to assist, Helen would say, I want to be paid 20,000 per hour or whatever the amount is. So what we can then do, Helen, I'm just making an example, please. Come on, man. No. So then what we can then do is use the YPDP that I was talking about as a bridging to say, please assist these young people, and then instead of you as a young person paying the mentor, we can then pay that. The other thing that I also forgot to mention is that if we provide you with pre-investment business support, and for some odd reason your transaction does not get approved, you are not liable. You don't have to pay back that money. We will give it to you as a grant. So you should not think that because we have given you this money for pre-investment business support and the transaction is not approved. Malibongwe doesn't like it, and for whatever reason you don't have pre-sale, and then the transaction gets declined, because those things will happen and you must be ready for them. Some of you will come to us, we are going to say no, but please don't be discouraged. We will say no in a nice way, and we'll give you reasons. Yeah, in fact, so when I started this business of lending, my boss said, I'm going to teach you how to say no, because you're going to say no a lot of times in your life. But we have to say no in a sense that this project is not working, but we don't want to kill your spirit. Yeah. You must come back with another one and ensure that you persist, and then we get. It says 3 minutes. So let me see.
Thank you so much. We have the last question, sorry guys, but we will have a networking session afterwards. This is obviously the opportunity to ask more questions. You've already identified who the key players are, and we've got a whole lot to say also. One question.
Hello, can you guys hear me? I'd like to say thank you to the IDC and Sowetan for hosting this event, and compliments to the chef. I really enjoyed the chicken. Now, back to business. So, my name is Thabo Tulo. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Space Sider Studios. We are a multi-award-winning gaming company, and we consider ourselves the next hip-hop. The reason for that is we're creating a culture in video games and an economy in the video games industry. So, I read that over 1.9 billion was invested in developing a film and gaming franchise. The game being Super Dragon Punch Force, and the movie was Boy Kills World. I think you probably saw the poster. So, before I start with my question, we're working on the next Mario Kart. For those of you who are in the video game space, you might know that Mario is one of the biggest IPs of all time, and they have one of the highest grossing animated films of all time. So my question is, how successful was this investment? And you don't have to give me all the numbers, but based off that answer, are you guys willing to take another risk at investing in another universe, a local universe? And I like what you said about taking Africa to the world. Like I said, we're the next hip hop. I'm making connections there, but thank you so much.
Okay, cool. Yeah, the nature of investments in this space, it's such that you see your returns over a long time. Say for a film, you will typically, previously you will typically go to a theater, then you get your start part of your revenue, and then you will go down to the DVDs. That's how it used to be. So realizing revenue, it actually comes after a long time. But from Boy Kills World, we've received some revenue from it. It's we've not reached the end of our recoupment period, so there is money that came through from that. So there is success. But for what you are doing on gaming, if you do have a proposal, we are more than willing to look at it and see how can we assist you to put up something that's probably palatable for our committees to approve.
I have it in my pocket. Can I give it to you?
No, we can talk outside when we during the networking session. For all the other questions, we can talk outside. Thanks.
Old moves. I'm actually excited there was someone from gaming, so thank you. And I mean, we all know gaming, esports is the fastest growing globally. So to have that come out of the country needs a bit more representation. That's just my two-piece. But no, we have our live streamers that I'm also communicating with. Question one that we have is, how is the IDC balancing financial support with sustainability in South African film industry? Either one of you can answer that one.
Financial support and sustainability. I
Yes,
think
how are they balancing that in the SA film industry?
it's a very difficult balance for the whole IDC. Remember, we are a development financial institution. Our job is to ensure development, but we must also be sustainable financially to ensure that we continue to survive. So what we're trying to do is to look at pockets of money where we can get affordable money, so that we can then bring to the market and specifically young people. Some of the things, the fund that I was talking about, is trying to do exactly that, where we ensure that we price the facilities correctly for the market, but we do a little bit of money to be sustainable. And I think maybe the person who's asking is talking about ensuring sustainability in the sector. And we are in this for a long haul. We will provide funding. We will ensure that, and particularly, guys, let me also tell you this. Once you succeed in one film, it becomes easier, because now people have trust in it. It becomes easier to get others. Malu wants to say something.
On ensuring development, I think that's what he was covering the most, to say we will have those funds, concessionary funds, to put into the investment so that we create the films. So on that side of development, that's what we are doing. On the side of sustainability, it's the assessments that we do, or how we try and assist you to ensure that the film that you're creating, it's going to be a profitable film. So if we are creating profitable films, we'll have a sustainable sector. So that's how we go about it.
Thank you very much. I think let's give you guys a break now. I can see you were even handing over to Malibongo all the time. Thank you so much. That was very informative. I think this last question I'm going to give to your boss, Kagisho. This last question that I have from online is, are there new funding models or partnerships filmmakers should know about? Obviously, within the IDC. Right there.
That's obviously a difficult one. But I'm glad it tells us we've got the right audience. I think the quality of questions speaks to what we're hoping to actually explore. So we've explored this question quite a bit internally. I think Manya Tamare alluded to some of these things. To say the young people ask practical questions, like Hope was saying, practically, how do I do this? Like when you leave this room today, what's next, right? Our experience has told us that young people find out they don't know who to talk to start with. They come to IDC, our checklist, which is around 4 pages, says under the marketing, find a distributor. Then they come back and say, I've been calling indigenous, they're not picking my call. What must I do? You keep saying, no, go back and keep trying. But that doesn't help, right? And they tell you, no, I've been trying to get equipment rental. They don't even give me credit. They want cash up front. Then what do I do? Because I can't get my project off the ground. So what we've been working with, and one of the things about your deal with Malibongwe, is that he must always close the conversation by saying terms and conditions apply. And that's a very loaded statement. So what we find that we've had a lot of interest in the market when we announce this thing, people wanting to reach out, to assist, whether market access, whether it's equipment, whether supervising, producing, whatever it is. Now, what we are going through is the procurement system at IDC to say, for us to pay you for the assistance you are providing to young people, we must KYC you, we must make sure you have your taxes in order and everything, and you must be on a panel, right? So we're trying to find creative ways of getting around the bureaucracy, around getting help. But the partnership model in our mind is what's going to work for this thing. And I think between today and the day in which we fully, of course, people can start loading their applications, but we want to do some form of opening window where we can really control this process, where now we have service providers that you can talk to, we can direct you. But for us to do that, we need to vet them and go through the whole process to make sure that we're not throwing the young people to the sharks and make sure they get the support that they need. And I think my conversation with the team was that in the Youth Month, we'll fully open for the scheme for people to start loading their applications, I think from the 15th of June. Yes. And then at that time, the whole ecosystem will be in place. You will know exactly who to talk to for your project to go ahead. But for those who are much more advanced now, they can follow that process online and load their projects, and we can assess them in the ordinary course of business. But at the end of the day, we'll have an opening window where we say, by this day, submit all your documents. Here are the partners we are working with, and then you'll start getting answers from day X so that we actually can control it. And I think what's also important, it's for the young people to keep us honest as well. We don't just come and say things and after this we disappear and we are not able. So whatever we tell you today, just give us time to implement, give us feedback, which is the most important part. If you say, no, this panel of yours doesn't make sense to me, I've got my own guy, the only thing we won't be able to entertain is people who are saying, I think I know enough. I don't need your your system, because then for when the money disappears, your career comes to an end. So we are really working around, and we are open to suggestions, by the way. I see some industry veterans are in the building. We are open to engage to see how we best do this. Like I said, this is the beginning of pre-production. We need to make sure when we start rolling, everything is in place and it's going to be executable. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So you said we need to keep him honest, right? You guys copied that, eh? Accountability. Who's documenting? I know you guys are having everything. But anyway, before we move on, thank you so much from the team at IDC. Honestly, for me personally, that was incredibly insightful, understanding the value chain as well, where your targets lie, and the psychographics from Helen, understanding the market, minimizing risk. I think we're all starting to get a bit more comfortable with regards to how to really just propose ourselves, and get our value propositions and business plans, and also realizing that the IDC is extremely approachable. And I think that's the whole essence of today, right? Is we're bridging that gap and we're getting the know-hows and understanding how to approach. Before we move on to our next speaker, a guest speaker. I always say, as a producer, you obviously have your, your idea and you get the implementation and you've created this amazing film or content, and now you get to show it at festivals, maybe debut it at our very own Joburg Film Festival, right? But the question remains, now what? As Hope also said, you need to make your money back. You need to have your content and your film seen around the world. This is where the key role of distribution comes in. And to take us through the world of distribution and help us monetize our IP, we have the perfect guest speaker. He is from Known Associates, a leading expert in content distribution. Please help me welcome Milton Rady.
They weren't joking when they said it was a full house. I did want to say, though, coming after Helen, I wasn't quite sure of my repertoire thereafter Helen. My name is Milton Rady. I'm the head of sales and distribution at Known Associates Distribution. I've been there for about a year now. And whilst I was driving to the venue today, it kind of dawned on me that I'm no longer regarded as youth. Minyati said, though, I am young at heart, so maybe that does cover it. But what I did realize was that over the last 20 years of my career, I've been very blessed and fortunate enough to participate in distribution at different stages of the distribution value chain. And now I have the opportunity to humbly share my experience and my expertise together with you today, and hopefully for our youthful audience that can help drive South Africa's content ecosystem, not just successfully here locally, but something that I'm incredibly passionate about, exporting it to the rest of the world. So in the last few years, I've had some opportunity to work a little bit more closer with development teams, producers, and filmmakers. And what I realized, particularly with first-time filmmakers, a lot of emphasis is put on linking success with having made your film. And for me, that's kind of like just the beginning of the journey for a distributor. Understanding how you make money from your film is actually as crucial as making it. So, all of you in this room are really serious. I couldn't agree more with Kagisha when he said the quality of the audience in the room today, the questions that are coming through. I've learned so much being as young as I am. Thank you for that. But if you are serious about having filmmaking as a career, then you have to be serious about how you're going to be able to unlock the commercial value of that particular property beyond the production process. So I'm incredibly grateful, as have all my other participants, for the IDC structuring this together with Sowetan. Thank you for the opportunity and the platform. But I think just beyond that, it's about the recognition of the critical importance that distribution plays, not after you've made your film, but very importantly, before you've actually made it. So I think Helen painted a really great picture of the landscape. I think if there's one thing you take away from that I maybe don't delve into the things that I want to speak about today, is that as a distributor, we spend a lot of time analyzing the landscape, looking at statistical data, audience viewership, where is it coming from, what's trending, how do we tap into what's trending now, how do we find out what could potentially be trending in the future. So what is distribution? Because Hope said she doesn't quite understand it. She doesn't quite get it. Like, I don't even understand it. I'm still learning over here. But I'm going to try. So if you hear me use words like market and audience, just understand that it's linked to viewership. Because our partners, our exhibition partners, whether they are in cinema, whether they are television platforms, whether they are streaming platforms, they're all interested in one thing. How many people get to watch your property? So that's a very important metric that we ascribe to as distributors. So the business of making your film available to audiences to view, not just across platforms, but involves several different activities in order to make that happen. So we're like a little baby IDC. We also structure deals. We also negotiate with platforms. Those platforms are often people, right, that are sitting behind them. So we need to also KYC. We also need to know our customer, what's important to them, what are their objectives, does the product that we have fit what they are looking for. There's other elements in the value chain that I believe as an industry we are starting to become more passionate about. We saw it earlier in this other presentation. Distribution marketing, something that's been missing for a really long time due to some of the changes and economic shifts in the industry. But Helen did a very great exercise. How many of us went to cinema? How many of us watched a local film? How many of us have watched a local film on streaming and on television? And what you may not know behind that is also discoverability. So how did you discover that this film was available theatrically? Or how did you discover that the series was available on streaming? That's all a form of distribution marketing. Let me get to communications and PR, also part of marketing, but incredibly important. Where are the newspapers and the digital platforms that get spoken to early on in a project? So a lot of my experience comes from working with Hollywood studios, and I've had the privilege of being able to have an inside look on how they actually craft a campaign from beginning to end. What we see on the red carpet or what you watch when you buy a ticket and you go to an exhibition partner is merely the result of all those activities that can start out sometimes almost 2 years ahead of time. So very critical, important for distribution is really that marketing element, communications, and PR. Furthermore, the quality. I've heard that in a couple of the discourses today. So how do we determine quality? I think production quality is one element of that. We spoke about service providers, and I'm not a production foodie, but I'm really enjoying working with the team at Known Associates because they have a culture of including me in all those particular elements, and it's completely fascinating. When we look at distribution, there's also a criteria for quality. It's the quality of the materials that we deliver, that you as an end consumer see. When you're on Facebook, when you're on TikTok, when you're on Instagram or on YouTube, that trailer that you're watching, that snippet, that cut down, that particular theme has been created and crafted by somebody. The quality of that element is so incredibly important. The structure that's gone into it to create the marketing hook for you, but also the quality on screen, right? Because if you want to be in cinema, we have to ascribe to a minimum threshold. So we have to ensure that the materials and the output match the platform that we're about to be distributed on. Another thing that your local distribution partner does is also work with local regulation agencies. So whether we are here in South Africa or across the continent or in other markets, in South Africa, for instance, if you're a distributor, you engage with the FPB from a censorship perspective. Prepping those materials, engaging with that particular team so that you get an age restriction, making sure that the marketing materials have that particularly displayed so that when there's an audience out there, they can identify. You didn't say that, whether it's an animation title, you're trying to get a PG kind of rating, or a family-orientated title because it's a wider audience. If it's adult-orientated, you're kind of edging towards 13, 15, 16-year-old kind of age restriction. So those are some of the elements that your distribution partner will work with you on, not just merely taking a commission when a sale is triggered. So I often get asked at places like DFM or MIP Africa to, how do you determine how to acquire something? Because that's the other element of distribution, is that I have to acquire a project. And interestingly enough, even within our own group structure, that question comes out. So today I try to kind of narrow it down and be very specific. I'll try to give you 3 areas that we consider from an evaluation perspective. And I think I'll make the writers and the filmmakers very happy first off, because it's the story, right? Is the story remarkable? Does it generate enthusiasm for sales and for marketing teams? And when you bundle that together with the production and the creative team, does it have the potential to connect with its defined target audience? Because if it does, it has strong playability. What do I mean by that? Kahisha made mention of something very interesting, something that I particularly enjoy about film. It's an asset with infinite value. Why do we say that? What does that mean? Kahiko's terms are very technical. Help me, Milton. Okay. Disney is one of the greatest art forms of kind of doing that. Just this past week, if you're on social media, you would have seen Snow White kind of making the headlines. But Snow White's kind of been reinvented quite a few times through the history of Disney. Disney as a studio is 100 years old. Warner as a studio is 100 years old. Sony as a studio is 100 years old. But all their IP lives way beyond the people that initially created them, beyond the writers that started those particular stories. If you worked with Marvel, you know that Marvel went through a really peak period up until about 5 years ago, but all those characters were developed by somebody else many, many years ago, and they still live on today. So you too. My personal philosophy is create once and distribute forever, because that's the power that we have, and that's the power that your story can unlock. So the second thing is your story or is your film marketable? Is there a definable audience that this film or project, this series, will appeal to? And if that's the case, what are the marketing hooks in this project, the elements that we can use to translate into several themes or marketing elements that we will be able to communicate through traditional media, which is your TV, radio, print, newspaper, and now, more importantly than ever before, digital media, with the help of social influencers. But, I mean, most of you in the room here, if you're in that particular category, you're on TikTok. You know, we don't have a shot at marketing to you. You give us half a second before you swipe up. So it's incredibly important to be dialed in not only to the platform that we're looking to market on, but also understand what is the environment that we are working in. How do we craft those particular materials? What story are we telling with those materials? How do I develop your audience appetite for this particular project over a longer period of time? There's an interesting principle in marketing, and I've never been to marketing school, but I've had a friend of mine tell it to me, and it always resonates with me, particularly in a world where we are, as consumers, bombarded with advertising and marketing material. I had an agency once do an exercise for us, and between Smith Street on the M1, driving to Four Ways, they videoed their trip, and they did a count of how many marketing touch points there were, how many adverts they had passed. It's an incredible number. Over 1,000 adverts across street poles, billboards, flyers, all those touch points in such a short space of time. With the advent of mobile technology today, we're always on our phones and we're always kind of being pushed marketing. So it's an incredible, important part of building a campaign for us. And now the last one. And this really speaks to everything the IDC is kind of positioning here today. It's the commercial potential of the project. Does it have the potential to sell? Does it have the potential to be monetized across the various different platforms? How do we determine that? It's not me, it's the data. And that's what your distributor has. They have access to reports, historical data, analysis that they use as comparative data to kind of put into a little machine, which is really just themselves and the knowledge that they hold, to start determining whether this has the potential to live on any particular platform, whether that be theatrical, television, streaming, or transactional. They also have a very acute understanding of current market values. I want to make a differentiation here. The world of licensing, owning your IP, fantastic. I believe in it. I advocate for it. The world of licensing is not the world of commissioning. So the paycheck is not as big initially. But remember, what we're trying to build here is an asset base for the future over a longer period of time. Malibongo said, our revenues are coming. They're coming in year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5. Just said, Disney, Warner, Universal, Sony, they've been around for 100 years. Today, Friends is still Warner's most profitable TV series around the world. Most of us have seen it, whether it be on television or on streaming. They continue to sell it on. That's the commercial potential that your project could potentially have. What else do we look do we look at? We look at the track record of the creative team that has been put together. Do they have the ability to bring this production together? Do they have the ability to deliver on time? And shifting just a little bit locally, but also internationally, that's become incredibly important to buyers on the other side is, who are the key talent that we are attaching to this project? Again, let me go back to viewership. You go to watch a Tom Cruise movie. You go to watch an Idris Elba film. We saw it in one of the productions, Mandela Long Walk to Freedom. Having Idris Elba, he was the hook. He was the box office draw for that particular project in markets outside of our home country. So packaging is incredibly important, the talent that we attach into it. And last but not least, under that commercial potential is a question I always like to ask the filmmaker producer on the other side is, what are their expectations? Do those expectations meet what the current market potential and demand is? Because that's incredibly important. We never want to be in a position where either one's expectations are higher or out of sync, and we don't deliver back on that particular expectation. So on that point, I want to say that we have a great opportunity to export our culture in a way that people can empathize and relate to it. I wish I could say that's my phrase, but it's not. It's something from another distributor from the US, and he recently shared with me. But I thought it very pertinent for us as South Africans and where we find ourselves now in this really big global ecosystem. So here's a quick snapshot on what is available in the African landscape in terms of distribution. I'd like to take you through and just build this a little bit more logically for you. And it may be a little changed post-COVID because of what happened during that period. But let me take you through a traditional release. Let's say we tick all the boxes of that commercial evaluation, and we believe that this film can go theatrically. That is your first distribution window. Your team would work really hard from a distribution perspective to work with exhibitors to get it placed and to get it marketed for that theatrical window. Traditionally, anything between 60 and 120 days later, it would move into video on demand. We refer to that as transactional video on demand. Some of you might know it as DSTV Box Office, or Google Play, or Apple iTunes. Beyond that, it used to traditionally be what we call a pay window or a first window. In the African space, MultiChoice is the leader in that particular category. And later on, we found that we could go to streaming video on demand. Showmax, Netflix, Amazon Prime. Over the last few years, the windows between those have started shrinking, but the revenue has not necessarily been growing. So that's a challenge that distributors are sitting with at the moment, and they're always at the coalface. They're always the ones to find out what's not working in the market, what are buyers looking for at the moment in those particular different pockets. And you traditionally find that exhibitors in that particular space enjoy working with distributors because they have the ability to bring a portfolio of products all at once to them rather than on once-off. And they are able to fill the gap with the demands that those particular exhibition platforms have got. I'd like to leave you with two last thoughts. The first one being that we live in a time and space where information has never been more accessible than before. It's freely available. To identify upcoming trends and traits is almost as simple as finding the top 10 of streaming platforms across the world and even locally as well. Or just look at your own personal consumer habits in your small space. Filmmaking isn't just about the art. I'm glad I heard it in this room that it's also about the business. And having a distributor on board as early as possible can assist you in crafting those elements, developing the strategy, executing the plan, but most importantly, allow you to monetize the production by maximizing the film's life cycle. So again, I want to thank the IDC for this amazing initiative, and I hope that it serves our youth to utilize this particular program as a stepping stone to create a base of assets that serve you to create future streams of income, to infinity and beyond.
Milton, ready. Whew, I've got so much to say. I wish I could have, or I am going to have a conversation with you after this. But one thing I want to actually highlight, especially for any artist, you know, I say this in the Business of the Arts workshop, you have to be multifaceted. I see my leading man right there, Sisana Henna. What up? That's my co-star, ladies and gentlemen. Is that if you know you are a draw card in any film, as a leading lady or leading man, as Milton mentioned, you know, people go to cinema for Tom Cruise. They know that that is the drawing card. Start having those conversations of, okay, sweat equity, let's start collaborating. Can I be an associate producer or EP? Let us also invest, because we already know that your face and your name is already a part of that investment. So start having those conversations, start thinking outside of what you are there for, and start the conversations of partnerships and collaboration and understanding the holistic picture of filmmaking. Yeah? Yes. All right. Now, without further ado, I always say seeing is believing. She is the prime example of a young person who has walked this very same journey that many of you are going to be walking on with the IDC. She truly needs no introduction because her shows have left a mark in the world of storytelling. She is the founder of Yellowbone Entertainment, who by the age of 37, mind you. Okay, sorry for outing your age, Leila. Okay, girl, I also just, you know, reached that over 35. But anyway, she has produced by the age of 37 over 10 feature films. She is joined by the very own senior woman enterprise specialist advocating for women and the youth at the IDC. Please help me hand over and welcome IDC's Joy Manotwana and filmmaker, of course, Leila Swart.
Close to fire, yeah. I think I must be closer. Wow. Good morning. This is afternoon. Good afternoon. Oh, these lights. Yeah, I mustn't look at them.
Do you want?
Good afternoon, everyone. As introduced, my name is Joy Manotwana, and Manyata has said that we are the advocates for youth and women at the IDC. It's a very exciting time to be here. In IDC, it's one of those, what should I call it, demographic that we struggle with. We don't have a lot of youth in all the sectors that we participate in. And the media and audiovisual sector is the only one where there is this much vibrancy in energy around the youth participation, youth ownership, the youth that is already in this business and doing really incredible things. Manyata and I didn't join the Berlin part of the walk, but I must tell you, the energy with which this was introduced to us was so amazing that it's so lovely to be here, and we realize that that discussion has led to an initiative such as this one, where we are not just talking, but we are walking the talk. But prior to that, we have people such as yourself who have done this even before this kind of support that we're talking about. And we want to almost give a sense to someone who's a future Leila. What does it take? How do you get it right? And I like that you are, you were youth in spirit maybe for 2 years now. But when you did all of this, it was when you were still youth.
Yeah.
And so it's not a fallacy that we're talking about. This is something that is possible. This is something that could actually happen. So I think maybe let's start there. How do you do it? How do you get so many accolades within that short space of time that you started? What is the combination that these young people that want to aspire to get to that need to almost emulate to get to that point.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I think thank you also to the IDC for hosting me here and having me here to be able to talk about the experiences that I went through, because I think it's very different being 25 years old and trying to say, I want to be a filmmaker, and how do I do that? I say 25 years old because the first time I walked into the IDC, I was 25 years old. I was living in Cape Town. I just finished studying film, although I just would recommend that I should have studied business, because really that's where you're going to be tested every step of the way. It is not enough to be just a storyteller, but we'll get into that shortly. And I was at a point where I wanted to be a filmmaker. I wanted to direct as well as produce. I wasn't exactly sure where my journey was going to take me. And I was frustrated. I'd been working on sets, from everything from a boom swinger to working in the art department to ultimately editing, which I think was really, really great for me, because it really did give me a foundation of understanding every facet of what it takes to be a filmmaker. I really came from the ground up. And at the age of 25, I had this film, and I was like, this film is going to change the world. I need to make this film. I'd written it myself. I'd struggled to write it. I tried every possible avenue that I knew in where I was from to try and fund it, and I couldn't. Then I thought, Joburg is definitely the place to be. I need to leave this small town that is Cape Town and venture out to Joburg. And one of the first places I went to was the IDC. I walked into this building. It's very intimidating at first, but they have like an information desk, and I sat down and somebody came to explain it to me. I realized then and there that I was not going to get the IDC's money for that film that I had written. But it was something that stayed in my mind, because I think for the first time I realized that it's quite an easy identity to be a struggling artist. It's easy to wear because you can attack every single angle and say, there is no support for what I do. But the crucial part is to challenge yourself to understand what your responsibility is on the other side. There are opportunities, there are avenues, and there are people in these avenues who really, really want you to succeed. But it means facing yourself, confronting yourself, and looking at the weaknesses that you have. Where are the gaps in your business model? Where are the gaps in your skill set? Trying to partner and put that pressure on yourself, because greatness is really something that comes from you. If there are models that don't work, you need to invent those models so that they do work. If you walk into the IDC and you have a deal that you can structure and propose that isn't something they've done before but makes sense, they're going to do it. They do need to make deals. They do need to close deals. People need to give money away, and you need to receive that money. So what I learned then was, okay, this art house small indie film that I made is not suitable for this model of financing. Let me take a breather. 2 years later, I started Yellowbone Entertainment, and I was partnered with a director who had experience. He had made a feature film before. Also a very crucial thing as a producer, to partner with somebody who is going to elevate you and help you walk the journey that you need to walk. We then went to the IDC again. Now I've got somebody with a track record, and we've got a product that we think is amazing. And we've started a company. I was 27 at the time. I knew nothing about all of the things that I needed to know about. But I understood the industry. I'd worked in the industry for so long. There were so many producers that I had worked for. There were people like Helen who were so willing to assist. But only also, you can't expect people to assist without you doing all of the groundwork. You can't be like, I have a concept, it's great, can we meet for a coffee? These people are busy. No. Where's the script? Where is all of those things? Whatever is within your control to manage and understand, do the work to manage and understand that. When walking into the IDC, the deal makers were phenomenal. They're a different set of deal makers now, so I can't speak for Malibongwe, but it's like a nice joke. But one in particular who I think deserves also to be mentioned by name, her name was Nikki Walton. She was my deal maker. At 27, she literally held my hand through that entire application process. Again, there was a lot of responsibility on me to make sure things were in order. I had a lot of help in terms of that. I had a supervising producer. Her name was Carolyn Carew. And everybody really, really did band together to help me and empower me. But I realized that the onus was also on me to show that I was worthy of investment, that I was willing to put in the work. I had Nikki phoning me sometimes at 11 p.m. She's like, this doesn't make sense. And then I'm like, I don't even know what this is. And then I had phoned Helen, I'd phoned Carolyn, I'd phoned whoever I could to say, what is this thing? And what you ultimately learn is that a checklist from the IDC, you get that first list. I love that list. because that list is a list that you cannot avoid. You have to stare that list directly straight on and say, okay, so I don't have a tax clearance certificate. I can't ignore that, you know? I think a lot of people then submit a half-done application and think to themselves, they're going to avoid that, or maybe later they're going to ask me for that and I'll sort it out. No, have your ducks in a row because the money is there and it is accessible. You just need to empower yourself to be the boss that you want to be.
Yeah.
And I think you have more questions, but yes, that was the initial. So we did get the IDC financing. It took a couple of months to work it out and close it, and it was ultimately the reason that film was made. It was the last gap that we had to close, and the IDC fund up to 49% of your production budget. It is a beautiful, wonderful opportunity that that you should place a lot of responsibility on yourself to meet and to exceed the expectations even you have for yourself.
I like that. So there was a lot of talk around making sure that you've got a commercially sound business proposition. And as a youngster, I mean, there was a lot of discussions around how do you make sure that you've got the product that is actually got a global appetite for whoever is going to be the distributor. I mean, Milton has said a mouthful around some of the things that you need to make sure that you have dealt with even before you go when you speak to a funder. How did you navigate that aspect of it?
So I think that's, again, a lesson that I've learned as I've grown up in the industry. I think with Yellowbone Entertainment, we were very specifically keen on making a brand that would impact the culture. You know, as I think it's Thabo said, there to be hip-hop. That's what we wanted to be in that sense, you know. And I think when you are young, you are so passionate about this vision. And I do think that in many ways we have achieved it, but it has come at a hard cost in terms of becoming financially sustainable, becoming a viable business. There were so many shifts that happened during the come up of my company. There was COVID, there was the shift to streaming, and a lot of hard lessons learned. I think for us, what we wanted to do was establish ourselves and internationally, because at the time, that was actually the model. It wasn't an environment where it's like, no, Netflix needs to make films for this market, and this market is the primary focus. Back then, this market was worth very little. It was about making work that would travel, that would go and sell internationally, and that was the primary focus of that kind of model that I was working within when I made Sew the Winter to My Skin, which is the film that the IDC funded. So we wanted to strive for critical acclaim, and the route to go that way to make this a viable market product. And I think it became the foundation of our business. I think I wouldn't exchange that for the world. I think we have garnered a certain amount of respect through that grit, and a brand that is very identifiable, which is something I've also learned is very, very important to understand what your brand is and stick with what your brand is. When we talk about sustainability, who are you? Everything that you then do contributes to your brand. So don't deviate from what your vision is just for the sake of making something. That's also very important. So that film went on to be South Africa's entry for the Oscars. It went on to premiere TIFF. It did a whole lot of things. Thank you. Did a whole lot of things that that cemented my company and ultimately made myself and my business partner who we are today. What I have learned in terms of lessons is that there are different ways to get to different places. If you do want to make a very high-risk, independent art house film, you know, do like Vusi Africa and make it. Do like we do, make it. Be clear about your brand and know what you want out of it. That film might not be a commissioned product on Netflix. Don't try and mold something like that into that. Similarly with the IDC, it's a development bank. It is a loan. That loan is not going to go away until you pay that loan back, trust me. So as kind and as wonderful as they are and extremely patient, it is very important to also understand the weight of finance. When you actually get millions of rands, somebody has given you millions of rands to make your vision a reality. Hold that responsibility with humility and make sure that you meet the expectations that are required of you. If this is not a commercially viable product, it needs to sell. And we have a whole issue in terms of distribution models and understanding that there is that problem, we're aware of that problem. It is not easy to get your product to sell. There are very few avenues. look at those avenues. If this story does not fit in these avenues, is Netflix going to buy it? Is it going to have a theatrical release where people are actually going to watch it? If the answer is no, don't do it to yourself. Not yet, not right now. The tide might turn, things shift all the time, but not right now. Right now, we are in the space of trying to make ourselves economically stable and economically viable, and that is of primary importance. And I think that is the energy that we need to foster right now. Be smart, be strategic, do your research, look at what is working in the market right now. You will get the money. Just tick the boxes. It's that simple. So that would be my advice in terms of that. Commerciality and commercial viability is what is required for packaging your film in the model that utilizes the IDC.
I like that. It's the money's there.
Yes.
So we don't have that problem. We have a problem that maybe we don't know how to speak to each other. And I think that's the part that we sort of wanting to understand. How do we do that better? Especially, Kagisho said we are in pre-production. And this pre-production is also around making sure that whatever we put out there is well thought out. And as we're putting together the building blocks of what the offering is going to eventually become, I think what I'd like to understand from you is where do you think we could have done better? Because that feedback is absolutely important for this leg of this discussion. As we go live, understand where is it that we think there's more investment that's required, there's less of something that we need to be doing more of, less of, and more of the other thing. So that kind of balance, where do you think are some of the things that we need to be considering as we're building this new offering?
Well, I think, just speaking from my heart, there are such glaring issues in the business model of this industry as a whole. And I feel like whenever we go into these spaces, we're so positive and we're like, yes, we can do this, but we're ignoring those things that don't function properly, which make it very difficult for us to give a compelling business case as filmmakers. You understand business, you're a development bank, but our industry doesn't fit into the models that have been created to facilitate venture capital loans, loan financing, equity financing, because we cannot promise you a return on investment. And we're never going to be able to. But we're taking on all of the risk as well, as individuals, as youth, as people of color, starting these ventures where people, when you don't pay them, they come down on you. They come down on you personally, but your intentions have never been bad. Most of us never go into this with the intention of stealing money or getting rich or going around the system.
Yeah.
That's why I have been so passionate and vocal about the DTIC, because the premise of that is that filmmakers are trying to undercut the system, not lying about their BEE status, doing this, doing that. It's very rare. We're actually all out here trying to build a sustainable industry and needing to be able to find models that make sense for the risk and level of risk of our sector as a whole. You can make an amazing film. The timing can be wrong. It doesn't do well. And then you are in debt for up to 8 million rand to the IDC, 50 million rand, whatever it is. What do you do then? So I think it's also understanding the pressure that is on us to keep this industry alive. It's brutal. It requires so much grit. And sometimes passion, it's not enough. It can only take you so far. You'll see people in the sector getting sick, getting ill, committing suicide, having severe mental health issues. And it's so much also about the glitz. Oh my gosh, you're famous, you're a superstar. And that's what we strive for, that recognition, but at what cost also? So I think the gap is to go, listen, these mechanisms don't work. Distribution is a serious problem. There's very few local distribution avenues. How do we plug that problem?
Yeah.
How do we, so that we can create an environment for us to thrive, for the youth to thrive, because otherwise we're setting them up for failure before they even start. So I think it's that. It's looking at working with a team of people to define a model that works for the IDC. And saying, these are the finance avenues, this is the distribution avenues, let's package this together for an applicant so that weight is not solely held by them.
And now, having gone through, having experienced those hardships, is there anything that you think you would do differently in the way that you've approached some of your projects?
It's such a difficult question because obviously on the journey towards self-love, one must be like everything I did. I forgive myself.
We are together here.
Yes, I think I wish I could say I wish the system was different. I wish the country was different. Sometimes I wish the world was different. But I think those are all, very esoteric thoughts. No, I wouldn't do anything different because it has made me who I am.
Yeah.
I've made terrible, terrible mistakes. You have no idea.
Yeah.
I've sat in the corner crying and going, like, why the fuck did I do that? But I've also had some beautiful wins and some incredible lessons from that. I literally feel like my experience in the industry initially was studying.
Yeah.
I didn't learn anything that I needed to learn when I studied film.
Yeah.
Nothing. It was all practical on the ground. And what has been incredible is also just to understand how important it is, despite the fact that we are all competing all the time for scraps. It's so important to form a community. It's so important to begin to stop this competition trend of trying to do things in isolation and start saying we need to collaborate, we need to help each other, and we need to have a very solid, supportive community because we need that. We need that to thrive. So no, I wouldn't do anything differently. If we went into the details, I probably would do a lot of things differently, but on the whole and where I've emerged now, I wouldn't do it differently.
I like what you're mentioning around building that ecosystem around yourself. When we were engaging, I mean, I'm not in the industry, but I was quite fascinated by the slates that you're working on, and almost helping those that are coming after you, that do not have the experience that you have, do not have the relationships that you have. How do you find that is helping some of the new entrants in the industry?
I think it's so crucial. I think one of the other really tragic things about this industry is that there's such a lack of mentors.
Yeah.
And the reason there's a lack of mentors is because we're actually all on the same level, ironically. There are people trying to raise money who are 60, 70 years old, hustling just as hard as I am, just as hard as you are, So, like I said, we're coming from a position of scarcity, which often makes us compete with each other.
Yeah.
And then often it prevents us from being able to have the access to people more experienced than us, because how many people have reached the level of success that we imagine?
Yeah.
You're young and you're dreaming, and like how many people have? I feel like we're all pretty much in our infancy state in terms of an industry and in terms of what success truly means,
Yeah.
and how we can take our sector and say this is a valuable sector because of the work we're churning out is consistently of a certain standard. It's making waves both locally and internationally. We're not there yet, and so I think by virtue of that, you'll find guidance and mentorship in different pockets, but it's not like we can say, there's this one producer, and this producer is the fountain of knowledge. If I get mentored by this producer, my career will be a walk in the park. There isn't that. So we have to learn to be that. And I think that's what's important.
Yeah, depending on yourself.
Yeah.
So, I mean, as a country that is always focusing on what we can export, I think this industry is one of those where we've got so much potential, and the platforms have changed where you don't have to find yourself being limited by only existing in South Africa. What do you think are the opportunities for yourself internationally, and maybe some of the challenges that you're facing locally that could be addressed differently if you were somewhere else?
I think that's a layered question, because I think the pinnacle or ideal has always been for us to make it globally, you know. But we've been chucked around so much by the tides of trends that it's difficult to say whether that is the most viable path towards economic success. When the streamers came in, they were interested in our market. They were interested in our audiences, which was for the first time now we were told, you're going to make high-end quality productions, but for your market. And what does that mean? And for so long we had been told, no, you've got to make it as American as possible. It's got to be as accessible to the West as possible for you to make money. So I think we're in a very murky state now as creatives because we've been pulled in so many different directions. And I wonder, and I don't have the answer, but I wonder what is the most sensible thing for us to do as business owners. is it our market? Should we be making games, movies, television shows that specifically elevate the content that we make for our market? Because actually that's where the big money players are looking right now. Or should we be looking at more international co-productions, making partnerships so that we make bigger products? And I think there's also space for that. There's also space to really start educating ourselves on what does work and travel across the world. But I think those projects are going to be more unique, more specific, and take a lot longer, because it does take a lot longer to work with co-productions where you're working with different countries, different financiers, and different needs and wants and expectations. So for me, personally, it's here that I want to make the impact that I want to make. I think our audience and our market is the most untapped, and I don't think personally from my heart that we will ever reach the levels of success globally or in the West that we will right here on this continent. I think this is the new frontier.
Love that, the new frontier. I think, I don't know if we're going to take some questions. Just 2 questions for Leila, and then we round it up. We'll take one this side. I'm not sure if I want to give it to Hannah, but...
I'll share with Vusi, award winner. I guess actually a comment. The youth slate that Leila's doing, is you were asking what, the IDC model, the things that weren't fitting into place. And I really like what Leila was speaking into. And I think mine is a comment. Maybe the support of, for example, the kind of youth slates that do bridge the gap. I love what Leila was saying. That list, you got to stare at it until you deliver on that list, because that's the way through the door. And it's true, the money is there at the 3%, etc. But I guess my encouragement is, thank you for actually asking that question, so that as much as we're saying the money is there is a gap between the two. For example, Leila's producing the youth slate for women. My company is producing the youth slate in general. And that's the NFVF program. I see some ex-NFVF execs in the room as well. And that's, I think that's for me, I would encourage, because I know you guys ran the NFVF thing, I would just encourage more of that kind of partnership, because NFVF, to a large extent, is very much in touch with actually what's happening on the ground. And that's why they built such a program, so that the likes of these youths have an opportunity to make, like their debut film,
Sure, thanks, Asisada. No, I'm not answering the question. I'm asking a different one. Leila, and Joy particularly, I think we have to maybe to a certain extent address the amount of effort realistically that it takes to secure this kind of deals. I think it is important that the issue of the amount of groundwork that needs to be laid, for this type of deals to be realized, sort of be addressed and not be sort of window dressed. Can we speak to the realistic timelines, that are there, that can be engaged, so that I think filmmakers in the room, can have an experience of how long it's taking, how long the process takes, so that we can then sort of engage from it from a perspective of a clear understanding.
Okay.
Sorry, Joy, just quick one. Sorry. Yeah. The DTIC rebating that's a practical one. They'll say you can only apply 45 days before principal photography, right? But what's the turnaround? Because if you're going to cash flow DTIC, what's that turnaround? Do you see what I mean? Before you can get into principal photography, because you need the approval letter in order to submit to IDC.
Okay. I think let's go to, there was one more question there, and then we cut it there.
Yeah, hi, sorry. Hi, my name is Douglas Mlaba. Just to give context of just also my history. So I'm a filmmaker and currently a film student with a background in BCom law undergrad and currently doing my honors now. Actually invited some of my peers and they're not here, which also just speaks to that disconnect of the film school and just bridging the gap between film school and the actual industry and that disconnect. But I guess that's a conversation for another day. Just with regards to this question is directed at both IDC and Leila. With regards to banking, I just made a film now that was sponsored by ABSA, And so that kind of, I mean, it is a short, so, but it's also introducing or contextualizing the fact that there is an interest or there's a door that's kind of opening, that's ajar that we can kind of break into, right? And I'm asking this specifically for the context of the Queenstown Kings and the co-production with Nedbank and how that came about. So basically my question to the IDC is, how far can what this opportunity is presenting in terms of opening up funding for young people and just the film industry in general as a development bank, how far can this template be used and be applied and be introduced to actual corporate banks, commercial banks? Is there a way to kind of bridge that gap into including, corporates into making films also, because I think there is an interest there considering the Queenstown Kings. And also just also a question on that, my deepest admiration for you and your work. And I'm just very curious about how that you're very committed to ensuring that you maintain the IP of your work. And you've done that with Queenstown King. So I'm just curious, please just speak to us about how that process took place with the Queenstown King and that Netflix co-production and how you were able to maintain that IP for the piece. I think we create great context. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that. I think we'll leave it there. And I'll take a squeeze at those.
Yes. I'm going to start backwards.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I think you raised a valuable point about seeking finance outside of the models and systems, and I think that's why it is so important to create models that are in place and that people can go and return to, which is what I've been trying to do with Nedbank off the back of Queenstown Kings. We're also existing in a space now where the ways of marketing are shifting. So to very quickly touch on it, brand integration is now kind of the new buzzword because commercials, TV commercials, people are not consuming as much anymore. Brands, there's actually a list of brands that's been published that are really, really now keen to invest in film, gaming, any media kind of content to be in partnership so that they can get their marketing in alternative ways, so that they can have adverts. And I think Known Associates also pioneered that with Standard Bank, where Standard Bank said, our values are looking at graduates. So with Ubertina Wetu, it was like, okay, let's package this around the fact that we want to attract graduates to open accounts at Standard Bank. So it's how you package that in terms of what is required from your product, and you see, okay, this can benefit this particular corporate. Let me go there and seek funding. But I think I can talk on that for a very, very long time. So we'll cut it there. Yes, everything that Yellowbone Entertainment has done, it has retained the IP too. I'm not sure if that is an accolade anymore, because getting commissioned work makes a lot more financial sense. So I think now, as we go into phase 2 of what our company looks like, we will be very specific about what IP we fight for and what IP we retain and see the longevity of versus, hey, let's make a little bit of money now, it would be nice. So I think it is about balancing that. And obviously with that kind of work, we'll be very specific about where the idea comes from and how passionate we are about it. But yes, of all of our products thus far, we own the IP too. And we've only recently started seeing, the returns on that. But now when Helen calls me and she's like, there's some money. So for the past couple of years, that has been really nice and rewarding. And I think it's important because it is a legacy. I think we are leaning too much into the commission space. We're not owning our product anymore. In fact, it's not even being owned by the continent anymore, if we really look at it. And I think that's a huge problem. So yes, distribution would open up the ability for us to empower ourselves more. So I think that's definitely a space we need to look at. And then funding like the IDC. This is what it is here for. It's to ensure that this IP stays in this beautiful land. Did I answer everything that you said? Cool, thank you.
Do you have a comment?
Sanda? It wasn't really for me.
Yeah.
Oh,
maybe let me comment on that one. I think when Kagisho spoke earlier, he was talking about how just having this program all of a sudden there's been a lot more people that want to band with us to say, how do we also participate? How do we help you? It's just that we're not going to be able to solve every single one of those problems. But what this gives us an opportunity to do is to have those conversations with those people that we already have those relationships with. DTIC, we work very closely with the DTIC. If you already, there's a colleague of mine who is in the Black Industrialist Scheme. If there is an application that is in our books, that application, we are able to track what is happening also on the DTIC side because of trying to have those close collaborations with the different ecosystem partners. NFVF, I think it helps to have somebody else that is also sharing in the risk. Someone, like you say, someone that already understands what's happening on the ground. Once they make that commitment, it becomes a lot more easier for you to have a conversation with a commercial funder because someone who understands a little bit more about the industry. I mean, we are funders at heart. We cannot play in every single one of those aspects that you touch point with. So it's very important to make sure that where we can, and we see ourselves as a partner with every one of our business partners that we deal with, because we understand that it's not a linear journey that any of those businesses are going to walk. We have to look at each one of them with what support we have, what is going to be the most suitable to respond to whatever the business needs. And sometimes we're not always going to be able to answer that from an IDC perspective. It's about us also tapping into our ecosystem and some of the people that we've got relationships with to say, how do we assist this business? Even if it's not necessarily from an IDC fund per se. I hope that answers you. And I think it also deals with the commercial partners that you mentioned. I think we'll leave it at that.
I just want to add to what Vusi was saying. It does take long, but the amount of time it takes is also dependent on how prepared you are when you apply, and also how much money you are asking for. It takes a bit longer, obviously, the more money you are asking for. But I really just want to stress also, I really did build the business off the back of applications like these. So the things that they are asking you for are things that you need to be able to be a sustainable entrepreneur. And look at it like that. Look at it not that this is the way to get this money. This is the way to build a sustainable business. You need these items, and let it be a list for you to actually build your own future as opposed to just trying to access money short term. But yeah, from my point of view, it is on you. You do have the power in your hands to succeed at this thing or not. And it's not easy, but those who do succeed have really, really, really worked their asses off. So work your asses off.
Ladies and gentlemen, a warm applause.
Thank you, Joy. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Leila Swart.
Thank you, Nambita Benmazwi.
Sure, I have so much to say and add, but I think, one thing that stood out for me, Leila, and just off the back of Joburg Film Festival, getting to moderate a panel with obviously the theme of women in film. It's actually so encouraging to see so many females here. And we have to fight twice as harder. We have to prove ourselves twice. We're not allowed to make any mistakes, It's almost this, and I want to touch on that because that is a real thing. As a female myself, woman in film, it is something that we do need to go into and really be honest about. Maybe a conversation for another day, but it is encouraging to see that the epitome of the IDC collaboration and excellence has been you, and you've broken barriers, and it's inspiring to see. So thank you. Okay, and to also encourage the local filmmakers who want to make content to the world is ready for African content. There's been a winds of change. They are hungry for our stories, for us to tell our own stories, for authenticity. I saw it, I experienced it at Essence Film Festival, and they are in awe of South African craft. I was a part of the CBS Showtime King Shaka. They want to make King Shaka the next Game of Thrones. So it's time for us to tell our own stories. It's time for, don't feel discouraged by only just, sticking here. There is an interest. There is an interest. Please, please, please. I actually am so excited to also chat to a lot of people here and see some history being made from today. Now, obviously, we know today has been nothing short of a life-changing masterclass. I, for one, have learned so much. As a filmmaker who is looking to furnish her skills and align with key decision makers, we've had this opportunity. I'm empowered with deep understanding of the value chain, and I know that we all are. So thank you to all our industry experts for giving of your time. Thank you, the IDC. Thank you, Sowetan. Thank you, Helen, for creating this dialogue and this opportunity for the youth to understand, for that gap to be bridged, and for the IDC to be more approachable. We see you. We're going to come after your money, okay? Thank you so much for recognizing that the future of stories is now. Speaking of now, let's take this time to network, create magic connections, collaborate, and start to embark on the power of collaboration. I encourage you all here and, of course, virtually to start working on these untold stories. With all the knowledge we've unpacked today, you are now equipped on how to craft your business plans. You know how to tick those boxes that you need to. You know how to get your house in order. So go onto the IDC website, www.idc.co.za, tap the Youth in Film window, and download all the guidelines that will help you embark to start our stories being told to the world. I am your host and MC, Nambita Penmasri. Thank you for being such an amazing audience, guys. I cannot wait to work with some of you. I cannot wait to watch many of you become the next history makers and storytellers to the world. Thank you.